computer is going to need your password, and I don't know if that will happen again before the time.
It shouldn't. We set this up about an hour and 15 minutes ago, so I think it has a 60-minute timeout.
Okay.
It definitely, we will be playing these videos before 60 minutes.
So don't sit too far away.
I won't. I'll be right over there.
Okay.
I'm hoping we can get the students together so I can make sure they're all here. They're all talking to their families, so I can't tell who's missing.
Right. Maybe, well, it's 5 minutes to go. Maybe I'll ask all the students to start taking their places.
Yeah. If you will, of course, catering is just now doing water. But if you want to let people know that water's back there, it's a little too late now, but.
Pardon? The only guy I know is she was right up front here. Yeah, the MSU people, they're doing a thing on Chloe Jessup.
Yes.
And so they're going to film her coming up here, as well as whatever else they're going to do. So that's independent of what Jane is doing. All right, I'm going to call the students on up. If I could have the students start taking their seats. They're in the first 3 rows here in front of the stage. Thank you. And we just had our bottles of water delivered, so if you need some water, it's at the back table there. you want, or I'll leave it there. It's
Yeah,
up
that'd
to
be
you.
good.
And you can shorten it if you need, but I had it all written out just so I would.
That's great. No, that's
know what to
nice.
say.
That's really good.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'll ask you to please take your seats and welcome to the white coat ceremony for the entering class of 2021 of the Montana WWAMI program. I thank you all for coming and for wearing your masks. We're doing that not because of any mandate at MSU, but because it is the right thing to do for us to protect our medical students and physicians, and in turn then protect their patients from what is going around. And so I appreciate your cooperation with that. My name's Martin Teinse. I'm the director of the WWAMI program at MSU, and I will kind of be the person overseeing the program for the first year and a half of the medical school for these students. And starting next week, I will be seeing them in class up to 4 hours a day, almost every day. So I'll get to know them very well, and they'll get to know me whether they like it or not. After that period, when the students get into the so-called patient care phase, then the clinical dean, which is Dr. Jay Erickson, will be in charge of that phase of the program for them, and you'll be hearing from him in just a moment. But first of all, I just want to welcome you all here and thank you for making the trip to support your friends and loved ones who are starting out on this exciting journey of becoming a physician. And so, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Jay Erickson, whom I just mentioned, our clinical dean, and he is going to present the George Sari Awards.
Thank you, Dr. Teinse. Good morning and welcome to the Montana WWAMI program here at MSU and Bozeman Health. And again, like Dr. Teinse, I'm very excited that we have 30 wonderful Montana WWAMI students entering our program. I'm sure you're very proud of them. We've gotten to know them over the last couple of weeks, and it's been a good experience. And they're going to hit the ground running right after Labor Day. So this is a good way to sort of have a nice weekend. As Dr. Teinse said, I'm the clinical dean. I oversee the clinical portions of the Montana WWAMI program. We have lots of opportunities for our students to do clinical rotations in the state. We have over 550 clinical faculty that are physicians in the state that teach in the Montana WWAMI program. That's almost a quarter of the practicing physicians teach in our program, and about 45 required clerkships in over 20 different communities. So our program is spread across the state. We like to have our students out and learning from our physicians. So my office and my responsibilities will begin, as Dr. Teinse said, after that 18-month foundations phase. I'm here as well to give a couple of awards. Dr. George Sari was a faculty member in our program, and he died sort of an untimely death a number of years ago, and a number of close friends, colleagues, developed a memorial fund, and so we give out 2 awards yearly, and in his honor and memory. And he had just, an amazing sense. He was an amazing educator. The students loved him, a high sense of professionalism, and because of that, we have 2 awards. Again, like I say, one for a student who just is graduating, And it's my honor and privilege to give that award to Dr. Kelsey Delaney. Let me Dr. Delaney is a native of Polson, Montana, and she graduated this past spring. And she was also a part of the trust class, and her trust community was Polson as well. And she was just very active and engaged all the way throughout medical school, and showed a lot of that humanitarian aspect of medicine that Dr. Sari represented. And so it was our pleasure to be able to give that to Dr. Delaney. She's now an intern, first-year resident at the University of Utah in their Med Peds program. And so she was able to break away and come back to Montana for that award. So again, thank you very much. Secondly, we give an award to a practicing physician, faculty, graduate. We have lots of different abilities to qualify for this award, but someone who really, again, represents that same humanitarian spirit and professionalism that Dr. Sari represented. And this year, that award goes to Dr. David Mark. Dr. Mark is also a Med Peds physician practicing in Hardin, Montana. But let me give you a little bit of a background. He was a graduate of Harvard Med School, and after graduation came out to Montana and worked with the IHS on the Crow Reservation for a number of years, and became a member of the tribe. He was just well beloved in that community, and again, a few years ago, sort of saw the vision that he could even offer improved health care for members of both the Crow and Northern Cheyenne reservations, and developed with community members the Bighorn Valley Community Health Center. That's now One Health, and it started with a few employees, and now they have well over 100 employees, and they now have community health centers not only in Hardin, but Ashland, Miles City, Lewistown, Chinook, Harlem, and Glendive. So One Health is really caring for populations throughout eastern Montana and north central Montana. And Dr. Mark is our co-director of our trust site in Hardin. And again, it's really our pleasure to be able to give that award to him. And he was hoping to be here, but with the pandemic and our hospitals being full, he had to stay in Hardin and care for COVID patients. Normally those are patients that would have been transferred up to Billings, but they're full. So that's what we're seeing is our small critical access hospitals are having to care for their COVID patients because the referral hospitals can't take them. So he's in Hardin, but he did have a video message, and we're going to see that now.
Thank you, Dr. Erickson. We do also have a short message from Dr. Delaney that we're going to let her do first, and then I'll play the video.
All right, awesome. Let's see. Okay, thanks. Thank you, everybody. The trick is going to be, I wrote a speech down on some note cards, but I've been a doctor for 3 months, and now my writing's atrocious, so let's see if I can read it. So it's a real honor to be here with you guys today and to welcome you to our WWAMI. I remember when I was sitting in your chairs, and just 4 years ago, and the doctor that got this award got up and spoke, and I was feeling very nervous. I was feeling excited, but I felt like everybody around me was more prepared, was smarter, was better than me. And I was listening to this doctor speaking up here thinking, oh my gosh, that guy's amazing. He went through all of med school and he was this amazing leader and he did all of this and that'll never be me. And I want to tell all of you guys who are feeling nervous and excited and all of those things that this can be you, because here I am. But I wanted to tell you too that this feeling that you are feeling, you will feel it for a long time and for the rest of your career, and you'll talk about it a lot. It's called the imposter syndrome. And you think that it's going to go away when you're a third year, or that one glorified fourth year, or intern, or senior resident, or attending, and it's always there. It's always fighting back at the back of your head, telling you you're not good enough. And the reason for that is because that's who we are. We're people who try to achieve a lot. We are people who have spent our whole life working very hard to do the things that we want to do, and tend to be a little bit of perfectionists as well. And in reality, we are our own biggest critics, and that's part of what has brought us into medicine. And in reality, yes, there's lots of studying, there's lots of hours, but I know that you guys can all do all of those things. I also know that you guys will be amazing doctors because of what brought you here in the first place, which is how much you care for people and your dedication to serving people. And that's what really allows us to connect with our patients in a way that lets us know them deeply, and in a way that allows us to uniquely tailor their care and know them in a way that allows us to, when a patient comes to you and is nervous and says, I don't want to go into the hospital, but you know they do need to go into the hospital, they trust you, and you can say, it's okay, I'll come visit you with a fishing magazine and some hunting stories every day, and you can stay in the hospital, it'll be okay. So I know that all of you are capable of that, because that's what we look for, and it's what drives you and brings you here in the first place. When you tell people that you're in medical school, you usually get several different reactions. A lot of people say, oh, that's a really long road. A lot of other people say, oh, it's so hard and you must be so smart. All of those things are very true. But I usually respond to people and say, it's a great privilege. It's a privilege to be here in Montana and be able to learn with people who are excited about where you're going and are excited to help in your learning. And it's a privilege to care for people and impact lives the way that we are able to. And in the truth, yes, the road is long. There are days that are going to make it seem longer than others, and there are days that are going to make it feel very rewarding. And yes, it's hard. It's hard not because of the things that most people think. There's lots of studying, there's lots of information that you got to know, all of those things. There's lots of hours, but it's hard because emotionally, there's a lot that goes into it. You'll come home from a day where you think you've done nothing but lose. You lost a patient that you've been fighting for days and days trying to save their life, and you've put every effort, every physical and mental part of your being into trying to save their life, and you can't. And you'll come home and you feel like you have nothing left to give. And the people at home who love you and care for you and your support system will be there just giving back to you. And you'll start to feel guilty, like you're just taking and taking. But you forget how much you give at work. And you forget how much the people in your support system love you, no matter what. And they will be there to prop you back up, refresh you, and bring you back for the day when when you do have a win. That patient you thought would never live gets to go home. You get to hug that kid that you thought was going to die as they walk out the door. And those are the days that you savor and you go back for. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your support systems. You have an incredible support system both at home and within your WWAMI, and that's what's beautiful about our WWAMI. You will get to be great close friends with the people that you're sitting next to today, and they'll be with you as you go off into your rotations all over the region, and then as you go off across the country for your residencies. And not only that, you have your wonderful mentors, several of them sitting up here. The great thing about WWAMI is you work very closely with a lot of your attendings, a lot of times one-on-one, and those attendings will soon become friends and mentors. I have several attendings that have become dear friends of mine. I've been able to text when I've been in a call room crying over a patient that just really hit me very hard. I've been able to call when I've been nervous about starting my first day of internship, and those are the relationships that we form in WWAMI. And that's why we call it a WWAMI. And I want to tell you guys that you will have hard times as you go through this journey. And I want to extend the invitation to all of you to reach out and talk to us. If you don't have anybody to talk to, you can talk to me. but I know that everybody in the WWAMI feels that way. When I was applying to MedPeds, there's not a MedPeds program at University of Washington. So I was trying to reach out to anybody that I could to talk about MedPeds. And I sent out emails to every person that graduated from UW and went into MedPeds in like the last 4 years. I expected to get maybe one email back. Every single one of them emailed me back and called and talked to me personally, because that's who we are. We love each other. You'll learn as you start going out away from the WWAMI region that we've metastasized everywhere. And we will find each other, and we will help each other, and it's just an incredible group of people that you have joined. And so I want to tell you that we all know that you guys are going to be incredible physicians. We are here for you all as a WWAMI, and it is my privilege to welcome you to our WWAMI. Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you, Kelsey. Now I'm going to play a video that Dr. Mark recorded for us. Get this to work.
Greetings from Bighorn County, and congratulations to you all on this epic occasion. I would have loved to be with you in person to share in the festivities, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. So we'll try to make do with this attempt at a virtual Plan B. So this, your white coat ceremony, is truly a profound event, unique, filled with important meaning, and different than previous ones you've experienced, like graduations and such, because with this ceremony, including the symbolic donning of your white coat, you are embarking on a journey to enter into a profession, joining with your colleagues seated around you, and following the footsteps and fellowship of many who have gone before. You've likely heard the words of the notable and somewhat controversial, to be sure, William Osler, who wrote, "The practice of medicine is an art, not a trade, a calling, not a business, a calling in which your heart will be exercised equally with your head." And his words ring true today. As you become a student of this profession and head down this exciting and challenging road ahead, you will be asked to do two almost mutually exclusive things: exercise your heart and your head. Clearly, becoming a physician requires you to develop your mind. You will be called upon to study hard, to sharpen your analytic skills, to learn a whole lot of new material. And I would say that the particular call to learn the craft of careful and critical thinking is perhaps more important now than ever before. We've all seen during this pandemic what can happen when society becomes unmoored from rigorous discernment and disciplined observation. We become vulnerable. Slickly produced YouTube videos become viewed as scientific truth. And actual insight from randomized controlled trials gets marginalized. We find ourselves in perilous places, and our world desperately needs more well-trained minds. But we have an equally compelling need for you to exercise your hearts, to develop your humanity, to carry on the legacy of so many who've gone before us. Francis Weld Peabody was a great physician-scientist whose 1927 article in JAMA is essential reading for all of us who would be students of medicine. This is where that famous line comes from that instructs us all to grow our hearts, to become compassionate listeners, to cherish the unique connection we can have with our patients. He writes, "One of the essential qualities of the clinician is an interest in humanity, For the secret of the care of the patient is in caring for the patient. So, in addition to asking you all to conceptualize the cardiovascular system as an electrical circuit with arterial resistance and venous capacitance, we also want you to pick up the mantle of service, learning to be present with other human beings, much like a member of the clergy. Exercise your heart and your head. Quite the tall order, wouldn't you say? And I've got no easy answers for you, but I do have one small practical suggestion on how to manage this apparent tension between these two competing demands. What I would offer is this: become expert at the physical exam. Learn well this fundamental craft of our profession. Spend more time with your patients than with your EMRs. Because I think that at the bedside with a patient, there is an absolutely unique coming together of the head and the heart. To be good at the physical exam, you need to know your basic science. The physical exam is where your lecture materials all get synthesized, a space where conceptual pathophysiology and pharmacology and epigenetics, they're all made real in flesh and blood. Dr. Carla Pugh is a brilliant professor of surgery at Stanford, and she insists that findings on the physical exam should really be considered phenotypic markers, not just physical signs, such that the cardiac rub and jugular venous distension and the peau d'orange are all biomarkers that should be considered right along with the high BNP level, the abnormal chest film, and the echo to arrive at your true picture of the patient. When you are performing a pulmonary exam with a patient and you observe digital clubbing and appreciate whispered pectoriloquy, that's when the stuff you learned in lectures about pressure volume loops and flow dynamics becomes real. Becoming an expert physical diagnostician is definitely an exercise for your mind. But gaining mastery of the physical exam is also very much a work of your heart. Here at the bedside is a unique place, a sacred space where ritualistic laying on of hands with the patient is central to the process of connecting and healing. A posture of openness and humility before your patient is vital. Just as patients notice immediately when their physician isn't really listening or being present with them, they recognize when the physical exam is rushed or shoddily done, when it differs from a skilled hands-on exam. Dr. Abraham Verghese, also of Stanford, is a preeminent expert in this area and is keen to ensure that we prevent the loss of bedside skills in modern American medicine. His words invite us to fully appreciate the privilege that we are given to enter this space with our patients. And they serve as a reminder to honor the sanctity of this ritual with rigorous preparation. He states, "For the clinician, the bedside is hallowed ground, the place where fellow human beings allow us the privilege of looking at, touching, and listening to their bodies. Our skills and discernment must be worthy of such trust." Now, this white coat that you will soon be wearing symbolizes that you are worthy of such trust, that you do have a right to enter into this space with your patients. It is also a tangible reminder of the challenge that now lies before you, this high calling to prepare yourself with diligence, dedication, and grace to skillfully honor the sanctity of this role. Please know that you are not on this journey alone. We are all here to support you in any way that we can. We are rooting for you, and we are absolutely confident that you will do more than rise to the occasion. So, congratulations, welcome aboard, and I wish you all the best in the days ahead.
So I forgot to mention that we had grand plans of taking the whole class of medical students to Hardin last week and spend some time with Dr. Mark, and we were unable to do that because of the COVID pandemic and its effects on both of our communities. But the students did get to learn from Dr. Mark last week via Zoom. And so they're quite familiar with him already. Now I will want to play a short video, a message from Dr. Suzanne Allen. She is the Vice Dean for Academic, Rural, and Regional Affairs at University of Washington, which is a long title that basically means she's the one who really runs the medical school over there. And she was unable to come and be here in person, but she did have a message for us.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Allen. I'm the Vice Dean for Academic, Rural, and Regional Affairs for the University of Washington School of Medicine. I bring you greetings from Dr. Ramsey, the Dean for UW School of Medicine. I'm sorry that neither of us is there with you today. Unfortunately, the pandemic is preventing that. I am excited, however, to be with you virtually, to be able to celebrate with you, your family, friends, and faculty members. I know you all have put in a lot of work to get to where you are today. Many hours in the class, doing homework, volunteer work, participating in lots of different groups and activities. And now the fun really begins. You're in medical school. Being a physician is a calling. It's a profession. And as with many professions, we have tools or symbols or things that people associate with physicians. The white coat and stethoscope you receive today are symbols of those. These may change over time. Certainly, physicians used to wear black to represent the seriousness of their profession. It wasn't until the early 1900s that the coats that physicians wore changed to white. At that time, we finally agreed that antiseptic procedure really helped prevent illness, so white then symbolized cleanliness. So your tools may change over time. However, what they symbolize will not. The responsibility, the power and privilege of being a physician, of caring for our patients, caring for their families, caring for your community, all of that will remain the same. Early in my career, I was taught a saying, something that Dr. Trudeau back in the 1800s said. And Dr. Trudeau said that a physician's role is to cure sometimes, to relieve often, and to comfort always. I've reflected on those words frequently throughout my career, as I have really shared in the joys and sorrows that my patients experience, as I have helped them with different challenges in their lives. And it really is an honor and a privilege that I have enjoyed to be able to share that with my patients. So as you receive your white coat and your stethoscope today, the symbols of the profession that you are joining, I hope you will remember Dr. Trudeau's words and the honor and privilege of being a physician. And that as a physician, our role is to cure sometimes, to relieve often, and to care always. Congratulations. I'm really excited for you to begin your new profession. Welcome to the medical profession.
Okay. Okay. So now I want to introduce to you Dr. Zach Myers. But before I do, I want to explain very briefly what the front row up here represent. These are what we call our college faculty. The UW has a college system where every student has a mentor. And there's a group of 5 students for each mentor. And that physician mentors the student throughout the 4 years of their medical curriculum, not just the time that they spend here learning from them in person. And these 6 physicians are our college mentors here in Bozeman. And each year we have one of them speak to the class at the white coat ceremony. And this year it's Dr. Zach Myers. Come on, Zach.
Excellent. Can everyone hear me okay? Well, thanks, Dr. Tynes, and a special welcome to all of you guys, especially you are our distinguished guests, also to our friends and family who are here today. As Dr. Tynes mentioned, college faculty get the honor to provide some words of wisdom each year, and I'm always honored when my turn comes around again. My name is Zach Myers. I'm college head here. I'm a family doc, and I grew up in Kalispell. Today is a special kind of day. It marks the end of one journey and the beginning of another. Of course, it's the end of immersion and the beginning of your true medical school coursework, but beyond that, it's the final step in the path of becoming a physician. For some of you, this is the fulfillment of a lifelong dream to get into medical school. So today is nearly full circle from diagnosing and healing stuffed animals, listening to their felt hearts, with a plastic stethoscope. That same young person next week will start listening to the actual beating hearts of real patients with the same care and thoughtfulness that she had listening to the stuffed animals. For others, a career in medicine wasn't a foregone conclusion. The decision came from exploration of self, meditation, travel, Peace Corps, medical missions, volunteer work, athletic pursuits, or other careers first. And for some today may be actually quite emotionally significant, remembering someone who inspired you to pursue medicine, a loved one who empowered you to fulfill your potential, to reach your goals, the impact of an injured or ill sibling, a family member or friend who's not with us but whose memory lives on. And now each of you is here together today to pursue this next step as a class, as a representation of your communities, your families, and our state. The next 4 years, you will learn much: science, medicine, humanity, the human body, but also importantly about yourselves. Today's ceremony is about each of you, about the profession you are joining. It's also about the friends and family that support you, those who made today possible. This journey to get here required sacrifice from each of you and support from those who support you. The next 4 years will require the same. I know each of you is grateful for that support. And it's true, we have much to be grateful for today. Let's be grateful that we can be here in person during this pandemic with, of course, appropriate precautions. Be grateful for this great space on this beautiful land. Part of our last week was celebrating the American Indian culture and learning about the historic trauma and life and health of our tribal people in Montana. The land we are on today is Apsalika, Crow, Salish, and Cheyenne. So let's take a moment to reflect gratefully on the journey, the land, the family, the friends, the mentors, and the experiences that brought us all here today. For the students in front, I'd like each of you to stand up and with your eyes, find those that are here, friends and family that are here to support you, and then give a round of applause to them. Please stand. Thank you. So you're hearing some themes, and I'll touch on a few other themes throughout the rest of my words here. Today is rich with symbolism and tradition. You just heard from Dr. Allen about the white coat, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the stethoscope. Both are quintessential symbols of the trade. The stethoscope that you were gifted is a tool, a signature of the profession. It's a rite of passage in a way. The stethoscopes which you have been using thus far to learn the physical exam were donated by the UW Alumni Foundation. I know that there are some people that are graduates of the University of Washington here with us today. Will you please stand? Thank you kindly. The stethoscope was first designed by René Linnaeus in the early 1800s. Prior to this, practitioners would apply their ear to the skin directly over the area they wanted to listen to, be that the chest, the back, the belly, the sides. The story goes that Dr. Linnaeus wanted to preserve the modesty of a female patient, and one day he saw two kids playing with a long piece of wood. One kid had it up to the one end up to his ear, the other had something that she was scratching on the other end. The sound was able to be transmitted to the one up to the ear. Linnaeus, remembering this acoustic phenomenon, thought this might be helpful in his quandary. So he tightly rolled a sheet of paper, one end which he placed over the chest of his patient, and put his ear to the other end. And his quote is, "I was surprised and elated to be able to hear the beating of her heart with far greater clearness than I had ever had with direct application of my ear." And so began the stethoscope. Fast forward 200 years, and here we are today. The stethoscope as you know it. To use it is simple enough. You put the tips in your ears, facing forward as you have learned, and you listen to what you're trying to listen to. However, to really use it and to hear with it takes a special type of listening. The stethoscope allows you, of course, to hear the sounds of the heart as its cadence marches on rhythmically. And while you may initially only hear the lub-dub, with practice you will hear the murmur of the person presenting with an untreated childhood illness. Or you may hear the erratic beats of atrial fibrillation with practice. The stethoscope also allows you to listen to the bellows of the lungs as they open and close, sustaining our breathing. And with practice, you will learn to hear how sounds change when that air movement is restricted or replaced by water, pus, or cancer. The stethoscope allows us to hear normal bowel tones and the flow through many of our great vessels, and as you listen, you will hear when they are narrowed. Throughout your medical school in the first 18 months and beyond, we will show you how to use this amazing tool, how to identify the normal and discern the sometimes subtle abnormal. To use any tool masterfully, however, it takes skill. It takes practice. In this case, it takes training your ear, listening to what and knowing what you're hearing and having practice listening to that, hearing what is there, and also trying to listen to what is not there. It takes not just putting your ears on and trying to listen. That's not quite enough. The stethoscope, it turns out, requires a special type of listening, a special skill with listening. The white coat, similarly, as we have heard from Dr. Allen, is a secret password. It's a key to unlock secrets of your patient's story and their health. It too requires a special presence, a special type of listening, of trust, and of rapport. It allows intimacy of information that may not be granted even to family members. What will you do when you hear the fears of a 60-year-old with a new ovarian mass, or those of a parent who's been up all night with their sick child? What will you do with a 25-year-old who tells you about thoughts of suicide, or a 15-year-old who's worried they may have contracted an STI? The white coat gains us entrance to our patients' stories, their lives, their bodies, their health, their hopes, their fears, and, very importantly, their trust. I imagine many of you may not know how to diagnose or what therapeutic options exist at this point for those patients I mentioned. However, I think each of you already has a great idea how to treat these patients by authentically listening, by genuinely respecting, by truly honoring each of these patients. You have expressed your desire to advocate, to ally with them. These advanced listening, communication, trust building, and rapport skills aren't automatic. They too need practice. And so it goes the same. The white coat and the entrance it provides us with patients requires a special type of skill and a special skill set of listening, trust building, and being present. Now, every patient encounter starts with your eyes, with observation, of course. What do you see in the patient's room? What does this tell you about the patient, their home life, their support system? When you look at them, how do they appear? What is their gait like? Are they ill? Does their skin give you clues to their underlying disease process? When you hear their history, what was said, but also importantly, what did the patient leave out? What findings did you expect to see when you're doing your physical exam? And did you not see things that you expected? These observations go into our clinical thinking and are the ingredients for a diagnosis. But how do you make a diagnosis? And is there a recipe? How do you make a diagnosis also knowing that what you say may change a patient's life forever? Well, we look at the history, we look at the exam findings, we look at risk factors and how common a disease might be in a population. But we also look at our individual patient in front of us. We think and we figure out and we reverse engineer what they've told us and we come up with a diagnosis. And we care and communicate those findings compassionately, just as a special type of listening is needed to accurately diagnose and treat our patient. A special type of observation and a special skill of clinical thinking are required. Now you may ask, well, do we also need special skills in smell or taste? And don't really want to go there because historically, back in the day when they were designing the stethoscope, they used to have to taste urine to diagnose diabetes, and thank goodness we have urinalysis machines these days. But I will just say that it takes special skills and honed senses to be a physician. Beyond that, it takes a special type of person to become a doctor, and each of you has the building blocks to be excellent physicians. Each of you has the right ingredients for the recipe of the trade, and each of you is here for a reason. Entering medical school, we enter into a contract with society that we do our work to help people, communities, and the society that we're in. The white coat and the stethoscope are ultimate symbols of that contract. And when you don these items, you'll find patients already look to you as their doctor, even if you don't feel you deserve that title just yet. Patients will tell you within 5 minutes things that they may not have shared with a loved one, a partner, a clergy, or a counselor. They will share simply because of the trust and the honored role that the white coat and the stethoscope represent. These are among the highest honors and privileges in life: the trust, the sharing, the interaction with patients and with their bodies and with their health. The white coat and the stethoscope are both symbol of those and a reminder to take that trust and privilege with the solemn oath, which you will do today. So you're hearing a few themes here about trust, about privilege, about support. And as I mentioned, there is honor and privilege within our trade. We maintain this honor and privilege by doing things of our trade professionally, justly, compassionately, competently. But these things that impart privilege also impart power. And just being on the diagnosing and treating side of the table also confers power. What will each of you do with that privilege and that power? Will you use the power to advocate? Advocate for your patients, for treatments, for healthcare interventions? Will you advocate for policy change? Will you use that power to create a new treatment or a new diagnostic test? Perhaps a healthier workplace or a healthier community? Will you create a safe space for your patient? Perhaps your office is the only safe space that patient has had. Will you use your power to invoke change by listening and empowering our patients, by supporting them, by bearing witness and respecting and learning from their experiences, by lobbying, by advocating, by voting, and by speaking out for justice? What will you do with your privilege and your power? I'm excited to see. Today again marks the beginning of a journey that you're embarking on with colleagues, faculty, family, friends. It's a journey for the health of your patients, your community, and our great state. It's a journey, a life in the making for some, or a recently discovered calling for others. On this journey, drink fast and drink deep from the well of curiosity and the well of knowledge. Work hard, play hard, learn with voracious curiosity. Keep an open mind about yourself, the things you're learning, and your patients. Learn from your teachers, your books, each other, but most importantly, from your patients. Enjoy the next part of the journey, for before you know it, you may be standing and sitting where we are and will have become the teachers, the mentors, the leaders, and the physicians for the rest of us. With that, I would like to wish each of you and those here to support you my heartfelt congratulations. I wish you the best in this journey ahead. Everyone in this room is so glad each of you is here, and I look forward to 4 great years ahead. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Herb Swick. Dr. Swick was one of our clinical instructors in the Missoula clinical site for many years, and is now retired. And he is now also still active with WWAMI as being a member of our advisory board. And he also is a member of something called the Ulcer Society, which he may have some words about. And I would like to have him come up now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a privilege for me to join you for this ceremony marking your entrance into medical school and thus to the profession of medicine. As Martin said, my name is Herbert Swick. I realized that I graduated from medical school 55 years ago. So I look like an old man. There's a good reason for that. But then I trained as a pediatric neurologist and have spent my career in academic medicine. This morning, we must acknowledge that we are all wearing masks because we're in the midst of the worst pandemic the world has seen in well over a century. It is likely that some in the audience have been personally affected by COVID-19 through the illness, perhaps even the death, of friends or loved ones. Certainly, everyone who is a healthcare provider has been profoundly affected. So let me start my comments by sharing a few brief excerpts from a poem written this spring as part of a remembrance ceremony commemorating the 1-year anniversary of taking care of COVID patients at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. The poem, written by Mia Sharper, is called simply March. Just as spring nudges against us once again, we know it's okay to take a moment, to be silent, to remember. It's okay to know that we are resilient, even as we stand stunned over the heartbreaking loss and the breathtaking recovery. This is love in a pandemic. March said, "I'm ripping away the life you knew, entering like a lion and roaring through the rest of the year. Somehow we held fast against furious winds, losing and gaining friends, patients, neighbors, colleagues. This March, we know it's love that moves us. With eyes open and hearts unmasked, we'll keep moving forward together to heal. And from this day forward, as new members of the profession of medicine, you will be challenged to move forward together to heal, with your eyes open and your hearts unmasked. This is true whether you were in the classrooms, the laboratories, or the clinics. And this will remain true long after the COVID-19 pandemic has ended. From this day forward, you are members of an honored profession that reaches back to ancient times. And as I listened to the earlier speakers today, I was afraid you might get the idea that somehow we had all colluded on what we were going to say. But I promise that's not the case. Because I too want to talk about stethoscopes and white coats. Both have long been important symbols of medicine, as you have heard just now from Dr. Mark, and you heard earlier from Dr. Allen. The white coat represents many things. Too often it has been used to mean status, authority, power, and certainly, as Dr. Mark said, use that power wisely. Otherwise, that power is not really important. It doesn't really mean anything. What does matter always is that the white coat represents the virtues on which medicine is grounded: wisdom, justice, courage, hope, as well as humility and the gentle touch of healing. A simple touch can convey confidence during a physical examination, reassurance when a patient is apprehensive, comfort when a family is grieving, empathy, compassion, and in many very real ways, the love of humankind. The distinguished physician, Sir William Osler, you've heard about him already once today, once noted that to serve the art of medicine as it should be served, one must love his fellow man. That's actually an epigram on your program today. More about Osler in a few minutes, but I wanted to make a couple of additional comments about the stethoscope, which Dr. Myers talked about just a minute ago. I was going to tell the same story. It was René Laennec who was going to examine a young patient by putting his ear against her chest. The problem was that she was a very attractive young woman, but also rather buxom. And she had symptoms of heart disease, but Laennec was, struggling about what to do about it. And literally, as Dr. Myers suggested, he saw a couple of kids playing with a wooden stick. He went back to the bedside of this young woman, and he heard the heartbeat through a rolled-up coil of paper. But the important point of this story, to my mind, is that this significant advance in medicine, this symbol of medicine, came because a physician was concerned about a young lady's modesty. He was thinking first about the patient. And let me encourage you also always to do that. A few minutes ago, I mentioned Sir William Osler, and you again heard about him at least once before. But who in the world was he? Osler was a physician who exemplified the highest standards of our profession and who is still revered today, over 100 years after his death in 1919, for his many contributions to our profession. Trained at McGill University in Canada, Osler was appointed the first professor of medicine at the newly opened Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in 1889. And then several years later, in 1905, he moved to England to become the Regius Professor of Medicine at Oxford. He was a prolific writer and speaker, and his words and his wisdom still influence medical education and practice. Not only did he advance the scientific basis of medicine, he also introduced bedside clinical teaching, which remains a critical component of medical education and one that you will experience fairly soon. To train physicians, Osler believed that the education of the heart, the moral side of man, must keep pace with the education of the head. Again, you've heard this idea already this morning. He argued that physicians were sustained by what he called the true poetry of life, the poetry of the commonplace, of the ordinary man, of the plain, toil-worn woman, with their loves and joys, their sorrows and their griefs. My own mentor was the neurologist, Dr. David Clark. Once in the early 1930s, when he was a young physician at the University of Chicago, he saw in clinic a severely retarded middle-aged man, accompanied by his elderly mother. They were of Polish heritage, and the mother, wearing a tattered house dress and a babushka, spoke only broken English. But she recalled vividly that not long after they had migrated to this country about 1900, she had brought her young son to the clinic where he was seen by a famous doctor from another city. That doctor was William Osler. He examined the child and conveyed to the mother that nothing could be done for his retardation and his other problems. But what the mother remembered about Osler, etched over a period of more than 3 decades, was not that he gave her devastating news, but instead, and this is what the mother said, he looked at me so kindly. Kindness and gentleness must always be the hallmarks of our profession, a profession in which you will encounter daily the true poetry of life, with its loves and joys, its sorrows and griefs. The American Osler Society that Martin mentioned is a group of about 200 physicians and medical historians dedicated to fostering humanism in the practice of medicine by perpetuating the ideals and the humanism that Osler himself showed. I've been a member of the AOS for over 20 years. About 3 years ago, the AOS published a small handbook designed especially for medical students called Osler for White Coat Pockets. It contains a number of practical and provocative chapters ranging from the traditions and virtues that are fundamental to our profession to tips for taking a medical history and doing a physical exam. And today, on behalf of the American Osler Society, I am pleased to present a copy of this handbook to each of you. I hope you will find it useful. So this morning, you are receiving a few small gifts. This morning, you're also committing yourself to giving a gift, a huge gift, the gift of self. And again, I encourage you to think clearly and closely and frequently about what we heard from Kelsey Delaney earlier today. Her comments were so true about the gift, receiving gifts and giving gifts, but mostly the idea of what that gift means to each of you. That gift of self will offer hope to those facing hopelessness, a gift that will bring care and cure to those who suffer, a gift that will improve the lives of the many patients and families who come to you in illness and pain, a gift that will give comfort to those in distress. Ultimately, I hope that gift of self will bring each of you immeasurable joy. So once again, congratulations and welcome to the profession of medicine.
Thank you, Dr. Swick. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, we're going to have the college faculty present the white coats to each of their 5 mentees, and we're going to call them up in order so that each college faculty member will do all 5 of his or her students. So we're going to start with Dr. Megan Johnston and her students, starting with Casey Cummings. And Michael Fuller. and Carson Cadis. Chloe Kessel. Michaela O'Donohue. Next, we have Dr. Leslie Kane presenting the coats to her students, starting with Joran Carpenter. Riley Galt. Colin Harris. Douglas Raymond. And Monica Whitney. And next we have the students of Dr. Tori Katz-Kelly. Ready? Starting with Randy Cure. Sarah Bush. C.J. Johnson. Corbin Merchant. Lindsay Riley. And now the students of Dr. Colette Kirchhoff, starting with Hayden Eyre. Ellen Guire. Kenan Hooker. Leah Kovacs. And Tessa Sawyer. Now the students of Dr. Zach Myers will come up, starting with Darcy Caldwell. Trade Shack. Tawny Kovacic. Hareen Sira. Paul Wilson. And now Dr. Ann Thomas will present the coats to her students, starting with Robel Bassett. Bronte Fitchek. Aaron Lyon. Jamie Ritter. And Marlo Schultz. All right, next I'm going to have Dr. Leslie Kane come up, who will lead the students in the physician's oath. And this is printed on the back of your program. And the students worked together with Dr. Kane on this just a couple days ago. And this is what they've come up with. Thank you.
All right, guys, here we go. If you guys want to go ahead and stand up, and as we talked about, turn around, face your family, friends. I'll get us started. As a member of the medical profession,
Next, I'm going to have Dr. Colette Kirchhoff come up and do a quick presentation. Thank you, Dr. Kirchhoff, and thank you so much, Kayla. I wouldn't be able to do this job without you. All right. So now, as we reach the end of our program, I just want to give out a very special thanks to all of you who came and to support the student in your life, whether it is a friend or a family member. We know that these students are all extremely dedicated and are going to become great physicians, but they're not doing that entirely on their own. They are here in part because of the efforts of those of you in the audience who came here to support them, and we want to acknowledge that. And so I want to just, again, give a round of applause to all the family and friends who've supported these students and will continue to support them throughout the years of medical school and the residency beyond, right? So. I also want to acknowledge our faculty. You have met 6 of them right here, and the students have been learning from them already for the past 3 weeks. They've also been learning from Dr. Cusick in anatomy a little bit, and they will be learning from many more of us over the next year and a half. And I think I see a few of them here in the audience, and I won't embarrass them by making them stand up, but I want to thank you too for coming and for all the work that you do for our students. And finally, I just got to say that this is my 30th class of WWAMI students, and I am looking forward to it like I do every year, because they are such bright and enthusiastic students, and I'm really looking forward to spending a lot of time with them over the next 2 months, probably a lot more than they're looking forward to spending time with me learning about biochemistry and genetics and pharmacology and cell physiology and all those terrible subjects. But I really do enjoy it. And I hope that some of them do too. And now, before we start congratulating our students, I would like them to all march out the door for a group picture before they disperse and it gets hard to corral them back together. So if they would be willing to do that, and for all of you to just stay in here for a minute so that we don't photobomb the picture, and they will put on their stethoscopes, and if you go right out the doors, the photographer is ready out there, and we'll get a group picture. And then you will all be free to join the students and congratulate them. And if we go outside, I think the weather's going to be nice enough, then we can take off our masks and get to see their faces, all right? Oh, yeah, and Kayla just reminded me there are bottles of water in the back. If any of you have gotten thirsty, please go ahead and grab one. Okay, so students first, follow Kayla there, out the door. Okay, so thank you all for coming and for supporting your students. We're very happy to have you here, and enjoy the rest of your day and your Labor Day weekend.